Welcome to the Parent Cafe Classroom, where parents get strategies for helping their children learn to read and read to learn, essentially learning how to tutor their children. If your child is currently in an elementary or middle school and is struggling with reading, this classroom is just for you. If your child merely needs support and you are using our Parents as Tutors series, this is just for you. If you are interested in preparing your child for kindergarten readiness, this class is definitely for you. Parents who use our Parent Cafe Classroom along with our Parents as Tutors series are finding that their children are experiencing improved fluency and a higher level of comprehension. English language learners are also finding our classroom to be beneficial. Come join us in the Parent Cafe Classroom and learn how to be your child's tutor.
Parents, welcome to another session of Parent Cafe. I want you to go ahead and share. Hit share right below this video. Share this episode with a parent who has a child who is having difficulties recognizing supporting details, using supporting details when writing, recognizing supporting details when reading. So many of our children have this problem, and that's why they're not doing well on their exams. Now, I want you to also share this with parents whose children are having issues with understanding how to structure a sequencing type of essay, because we will be addressing all of that in this exciting episode. You are going to just love what Romel and I have been doing. So, we've been hearing from parents who are saying that their children are unable, still struggling with fiction and nonfiction. So we're going to show you how you could write on the very same topic in fiction and nonfiction. So Romel is over here looking over the difference between fiction and nonfiction, because Romel is going to use the supporting details that he gathered while we were baking. Yes, we were. See, we started baking a lemon cake, which is Romel's favorite, and Romel was supposed to collect the details. Pay attention to the details and pay attention to the sequencing in order. All the actions and events in order. So he had to list them in order and capture all the details. Then I looked at the 8 details that Romel showed, and when I looked, Romel left out so much important details. So I'm going to show you what he gave me first, and I'm also going to show you the questions that I asked. Then I'm going to show you why we had to rebake, I'm going to call it, because we had to do it over again for him to capture details that he missed. And you're going to see the difference. Once we get all those details flushed out, Romel is going to use those details to write a fiction essay, but it must be in sequential order. That's why we have up here organizational structure. It has to be structured like a sequencing type of essay. And he's going to write that in a fiction, and he's going to write that in nonfiction. So stay tuned as we clean up everything we used to bake. We'll be right back. Parents, remember I told you that when we first baked that cake, Romel did not quite get all the details. And this is what you have to do with your children. You have to take them through processes in which they gather details. They must pay attention to supporting details. Now, for those of you who have our books, this lesson is going to be coming from the Comprehension Full Guide. And remember, if you are a parent whose first language is Spanish, remember we also have it in Spanish here for you. But parents, if you don't have the book, let's just roll along, and I hope you're taking notes. So the first thing we're focusing on is teaching Romel how to gather important details. Over here on the chart, Romel gave me 8 details that he observed and listen to while we were baking. His is in the black text, and the questions that I asked Romel, I have them in color. Go ahead, Romel. What was your first detail?
My first detail was I got all the ingredients. I got the ingredients from the shelf and the refrigerator.
Okay, and then I asked Romel, I said, really, is that all? Because what is that shelf in the kitchen called? When I asked Romel to pick up the ingredients, I did give him the name of the place where he should get it from. And I asked, so which ingredients were taken from the refrigerator and which ingredients from the shelf? He left out all that detail. It was just skimpy. Your second detail?
My second detail was that I got all measuring utensils from the shelf.
Okay, same thing again. I had to ask, what's the name of the shelf? So, and what type of measuring instruments did you get? And could we use them to measure all types of ingredients? I had to ask him all the fact that I kept asking him all these means that he did not quite pick up all the supporting details. That's a problem that Romel even had in school, and your child may be having that problem. Ask your teacher. Next one.
The next one was that the ingredients were butter, sugar, eggs, lemon, flour, baking powder, baking soda, salt, lemon juice, buttermilk, and vanilla.
Okay, that was good. Romel remembered all the ingredients, but Romel left out some important details about the ingredients. For example, was the butter salted or unsalted? You see how he missed that? Were the eggs large or small? What type of flour? What type of sugar? Brown or white? Is there another name for white sugar? What type of salt? These are important details that Romel missed. Number 4.
Number 4, I turned on the oven.
Okay, so he said he turned on the oven, but Romel didn't tell us to what degree. So I asked, I say, what word can we use to describe warming up the oven before we start? Because I did use a particular word to Romel. And I said, let me give you a hint. I said it was before the prefix, before. So as I talk about that prefix, if you want to work with your children on prefix, go to the book if you have it, Understanding Words. So because Romel used understanding words, I had to remind him about paying attention to prefix. And then Romel also did not tell us to what degree the oven was set. Number 5, Romel?
Number 5 is that I greased the baking pans.
Okay. Then I said, in addition to greasing the pans, what else did I do with the baking pans? He left out that detail. Number 6?
Number 6, I poured the sugar and the butter in a bowl and started mixing them up.
Okay, so he said he was mixing them up, but then I asked, so what did I do before the butter, with the butter before I placed it in the bowl? At what point did I start mixing the butter and sugar? When I was done, did the mixture look different? How so? On what speed was the mixer set? What length of time did it take me to mix the butter and sugar? All of those details are missing. Number 7.
Number 7, I added the egg, baking soda, baking powder, and salt to the butter and sugar mixture.
What did I do to those ingredients before adding them to the butter and sugar mix? All of those things are missing. Would you consider those dry ingredients, and why? I explained all of that to Romel. He forgot all of that. None of those details were captured. Number 8.
I mixed the vanilla, buttermilk, and lemon juice in a bowl, and then add them to that sugar and butter mixture. I also add the dry mixture too.
Okay, so he's saying add instead of added because it's past tense. So we pay attention to those things, and once again, if you're working on those things, you would go to understanding words and also the blending and segmenting. So I had to ask him, I said, did I add all of them at the same time? Explain. Which mixture did I start with first, dry or wet? Which mixture did I end with? because we did that in a particular way and none of those details are there. Go ahead.
Yes. And after everything was mixed, I poured the mixture in the baking pan and put it in the oven.
For how long? What did I use to help me know that the cake was baked? All of those details are missing. Do you see why I needed to go back and bake again? Just for Romel to learn to capture details. Pay attention to the details. Pay attention to the details that you observe and the details that you hear. So, parent, let me show you how Romel captured the details the second time we baked. We'll be back. Parents, look at what Romel did. The second time I baked the cake, Romel picked up deeper details. Remember, talk with your child about this. You gather details through all 5 senses. What you observe, what you hear, even what you smell. They need to pay attention to all those details. Okay, so let's look at how different Romel captured details on the second go around. He said, number 1, you got some ingredients from the cupboard and others from the refrigerator. Unsalted butter, white granulated sugar, self-rising flour, baking powder, baking soda, vanilla, and kosher salt came from the cupboard. Remember, the first time we did it, he said it was some shelf. Lemon juice, large eggs, and buttermilk came from the refrigerator. So based on the questions that I asked, Romel found out all the parts that he missed. Number 2, you got all measuring utensils from the cupboard. Some were to measure liquid and some were to measure dry ingredients like flour, sugar, salt, baking powder, and baking soda. And he was telling me that he said, you measured vanilla, lemon juice, and buttermilk using a different type of measuring utensil. See how better the details are now? Now he has rich details with which to write. Number 3, you measured the ingredients before mixing them together. The sticks of butter were easy because 2 of those was a ½ pound, 2 half cups granulated sugar, 4 large eggs, 3 cups of flour, a ½ teaspoon baking powder, ½ teaspoon baking soda, 3/4 cup lemon, 3/4 cup buttermilk, and 1 teaspoon vanilla extract from the bottle. So much more details, specific details. Now we know how much of what was used in the cake. Number 4, you preheated, P-R-E. Remember I gave him a hint about prefix? You preheated the oven at 350 degrees. Much better. Number 5, you greased the baking pans and then sprinkled them with flour so the cake would not stick. See, while we were doing that, Romel asked me why were we greasing the bottom of the baking tin and sprinkling flour over it, and I told him, so he heard when I said that was to make sure the cake would not stick. You let the butter stay on the counter until it got soft. That wasn't in the first round. And then you mix the sugar and the butter in a bowl until it got fluffy. See? Now he's giving us the visual, more details. And then started adding the eggs one at a time. You mix the butter and sugar together with the electric mixer for 6 minutes. The mixer was set at medium speed. Much better details. This is what I want you to do with your children. Have them watch the things you do and just detail it. Number 7, you got a different bowl and use a strainer to sift the dry ingredients like baking soda, baking powder, salt, and flour. Next, you mix the wet ingredients like the vanilla, buttermilk, and lemon juice in a bowl. Then you added everything to the butter and sugar mix. But you alternate. This time this, but you alternate it between dry ingredients and wet ingredients. You started out pouring the dry ingredients to the sugar and butter mix, then the liquid, and ended with the dry ingredients. So it was dry ingredients going into that butter sugar mix that also had the egg in it, then the liquid, then the dry, alternating. Okay, after everything was mixed, you pour the mixture in the baking pan and put it in the oven for 45 minutes. All that detail was left out the first time. But you use the tester to check if the cake was baked. That was left out too. If the tester came up wet when you stuck it in the cake, we knew it was not baked. So this is richer. Please use these strategies to help your children pay attention to important details. So he captured it, and now the reason Romel is not here at this moment, Romel is busy writing his first essay. So Romel is going to use all the supporting detail to write a non-fiction essay, but it must be in sequence, in order. So Romel will be using words like first, next, then, followed by, to help us understand that there's a flow to these actions and activities. That's a sequencing essay. But he's going to write it, structure it as a nonfiction. So here's the thing. If your child is writing it in an essay in nonfiction, we should see things like captions, bold text, italicized text, headings, subheadings, all those organizational aids to organize the text. We should also see tables and charts which give us additional information. So we'll be looking for those in Romel's nonfiction essay on baking a lemon cake. Glossary. We may have a glossary, pictures and drawings, all those illustrations. So that's what he's focusing on. When he's done writing it in nonfiction, he's going to write it in fiction, which will have literary elements like narrative elements, which will have character, setting, problem, solution, plot of events, themes, and point of view. So let's go see what Romel is doing, and let's see the nonfiction text that Romel actually put together. Parents, so Romel almost completed the nonfiction essay about baking a lemon cake using all of that important information he gathered. So look, remember we said that in informational text, you can use charts or tables to actually convey information. So sometimes this actual information is not in the body of the text, therefore you look in the tables. This is why you have to really pay attention to the pictures and the captions that are under the pictures, because they give additional information. That's the difference between a fiction and nonfiction. So let's see. So he has subheadings, choosing and measuring ingredients, then over here, mixing, then over here, baking. So, opening paragraph, baking a lemon cake is a lot of work, and it is so important to follow the steps. If the steps are not followed in order or the right ingredients are not used, it can be a disaster. Sometimes you can also use the right ingredients and follow the correct steps, but do not keep it in the oven long enough, and that means the cake won't be really baked. Not good. So Romel, I assume you have a catchy opening, and I like that, because people are going to want to see what you're talking about. So the first subheading, choosing and measuring ingredients. Tell your children to pay attention to subheadings, because what this is telling us is that all the information about measuring the ingredients is right here. All the information about choosing the ingredients are right here. All the measurements are in the table. They're not in the body of the text. That's how you talk to them about informational text. Look everywhere in the text. Let's move over here. Let's look at this other subheading, mixing. So where would we find information about how to mix the ingredients? Under the subheading, mixing. This is the same way you talk to your children. Where would we find information about choosing or selecting the ingredients or measuring the ingredients? Under this subheading. Where would we find the measurements? Within the table. Here's a picture. How does the picture help you? It helps you to visualize the actual cake, to visualize, to see what it looks like. How does this subheading help? It tells us that whatever information we're looking for regarding mixing is right here. Step back a little bit, Romel. So here is a picture and the caption. Caption tells us this is about mixing of all ingredients. Romel wrote that. So Romel is telling you that because you were not there, he's showing you what it actually looked like, mixing all ingredients. Then Romel put another picture, and under it the caption is sifting of dry ingredients. So pay attention to the caption because Romel wrote sifting of dry ingredients to tell you that this is what it looks like, even though he's explaining it. Baking, that is the final subheading. So if you want to find information about the actual baking of that mixture, this is the paragraph in which you would find it. So what I just did for your parents was walk you through how to have your children pay attention to the information under the subheading so they don't have to look everywhere for information on this over here. The subheading tells you, the table gives you information, the pictures give you information, the caption gives you information in an informational text. So parents, Romel and I are going to step aside a little bit to give you a little time to just read this. Okay, parents, so we looked at the nonfiction sequential essay that Romel wrote. Now, I went and got this from Romel. He's still writing. So I went and got this to show you. Remember, with the fiction, usually there are characters in here. A lot of I. That's Romel. The day I baked a lemon cake by Romel, and Romel is saying I. The fact that I is being used, it tells that Romel, the author, is telling the story in the first person. I, me, my. First person's point of view. Let's write it here. First person point of view. Go back and look at the video on narrative questioning and you'll see what I'm talking about. So first person point of view. Also, it is a fiction, so a narrative, so therefore we need to look for the problem. I thought a day off from school was what I really wanted, but I was so bored. Ooh, that's a problem. I could not play outside because it was gloomy, cold, and wet from the rain. It's a good thing that the house was warm and I could watch TV all day while cuddled up under the warm blanket. Not for long because I heard my mother calling me. So the problem here was Romel was bored because he could not play outside because it was gloomy, cold, and wet from the rain. See? So your children must be able to detect a problem. Okay, problem. If there's a problem, there's got to be a solution. Most of the story is going to be about how that problem was solved. Tell your children that too. Good news. Mom said I could help her bake a cake. I jumped for joy. Sounds like the problem is being solved. To top it off, she was baking my favorite lemon cake. I was ready to begin. Mom told me what to get from the kitchen cupboard, so I climbed up onto the kitchen stool and handed her a pack of granulated sugar. All those details that Romel captured when he observed. The same details he put in the actual text, nonfiction text, he's putting them in here, but in a narrative way. See? So you have your children write the same topic in narrative and nonfiction, and they'll get the idea. They'll understand the difference. So it tells how he got down from the stool, the kitchen stool, and to the refrigerator. So he went to the cupboard and got those. He went to the refrigerator and got those. How mom lifted the big red mixer from the pantry. So you're following along sequentially. What happened next? What happened next? So sometimes you might not see, like over here, where he has first, followed by, finally, next. But the story is flowing in that way. I did this, then I did that, sequential. So I could not wait to begin mixing, but Mom reminded me that we had to first measure the ingredients. It made sense because we couldn't use all that flour and sugar. She showed me which measuring utensils to use for the dry ingredients. And he went on and on until he started to actually give us the information. Remember, in the nonfiction text, he had this information in a table. We were ready to begin. First, I measured 3 cups of flour, followed by 2.5 cups of granulated sugar, and so on and so on. So you get the idea. So the problem was basically solved by Mom allowing him to actually bake a cake. So I'm going to go back and check to see what Romel is doing right now. Parents, Romel completed the fiction essay using the very details that he gathered. But I want to point this out to you, the last paragraph. I was so happy when Mom said I could lick the bowl. That batter, as Mom called it, was so good. The smell of lemon cake baking changed the way I felt for the day. Remember, the problem was he was bored. So a question you could ask your child at the end of the story is, how did Romel's feelings change throughout the story? So you could see throughout the story, Romel is saying, and rubbing his tummy, that he absolutely enjoyed this. So the smell of lemon cake baking changed the way I felt for the day. Suddenly, it did not bother me anymore that outdoors was too wet for playing. It was a wonderful no-school day. So Romel, would you say that your problem was solved?
Yes.
Yes. So problem, solution, let them explain how the problem was solved, how the story was told in first person or third person. There are many, many questions that you can ask just using this fiction. Please go back and watch the narrative questioning video because that tells you exactly how to question your child if your child reads a narrative text. Use those. Parents, thank you so much for watching, and be sure to share this video with friends, with children, so we can help another person to help a child to read.
Come join us in the Parent Cafe classroom and learn how to be your child's tutor.